What I realized is I just had to say, okay, there was a time when this would have had me measuring myself against a negative opinion and not giving credence to the positive opinions that I knew were out there.
Welcome to Biz Stories Shared, where storytellers share their inspiration, motivation, some disappointments, and how they applied the lessons that led them to success. Stories are gifts. Listen as these gifts are shared. Now, here is your host, Charlotte Plott.
Hello, storytellers. This is Charlotte Plott, and I'm thrilled to bring you our guest today, Nancy Tossell. Nancy, are you ready to be a storyteller?
I think so.
Oh, good. Well, Nancy has a bachelor's degree in medical technology and has worked in that medical field for 20 years. Nancy has experience from selling investments, real estate, and for working at a college textbook store for 4 years. About 3 years ago, Nancy learned about copywriting and has been working on her technique. Currently, she writes for an interior designer and plans to launch a website for women in her age group. The site is intended to be a resource for those who are in the sandwich generation, as well as ourselves. So Nancy, I've given our listeners just a little summary about you. So take a minute, tell us more about you personally because we want to get to know you better, and then give us an overview of your business.
As you mentioned, my degree was a very specific degree, and it just groomed me for doing laboratory work, mainly hospital lab or research lab. So I was able to go right into the working world. The transition was very easy. And so for the next 9 years and then another 11 years after that, I actually went to a medical diagnostic company. And so, again, there was just no waffling or anything. I just knew what to do and moved on it. Then when I left the medical field, that's where all these other little jobs came in. I sort of decided I wanted to try some different things. I had the luxury of doing that. Some I had limited success, some not very much success, but it gave me an opportunity to try different things. And then with the copywriting, I realized this was a skill that I really wanted to work on and hone in on. And it's taken a little longer than I thought, but I feel like I found something that I can stick with for a while.
Sounds really exciting to be able to learn copywriting. I think that is a great area for you with your skills. Here, Nancy, at Biz Stories Shared, we start every show with our guest's favorite quote. So, Nancy, what's your favorite quote, and how do you apply this to your everyday thinking?
Well, it comes from sort of an odd source. It's from Samuel Jackson, the actor. And many years ago, he did a movie where he was playing this lizard-like creature that the movie was a total flop. And so there was somebody doing an interview with him, and they asked him about it. And he said, I'd rather fail at something I tried than not to have tried it at all. So I realized I really like that. And basically that's been my practice too. After going through, 20 years of having a very, what I call linear progression where things just fell into place, I've been sort of trying all these different things. And, again, I would rather at least be doing that and seeing what I'm capable of doing than to sit back and just play it safe.
That's a very profound lesson that you gave us to go along with that quote. Thank you for that. And Nancy, you've shared some of the facets of your life. Along the way, you might have had just a whisper of discontent, sort of like that gentleman in the quote. So we know that when taking action, you either win or you learn something. And sometimes the lessons learned are more valuable than the actions taken. So I want to ask you to tell us one of the times you just didn't get the results that you set out to achieve.
I have a very distinct situation where when I went from laboratory into the medical diagnostic with this company, I started as a technical rep. And the person who the territory I took over, the one who left it, she went to another position within the company. She had been named Tech Rep of the Year. So I was following the footsteps of somebody who was very recognized, very accomplished. So it was a bit intimidating, and the whole change doing this, going from a job where I would hit a time clock to a job where I had a territory and a company car, that was a whole life change. And so It was stressful. I was nervous at first, and for the most part, the customers were very good, but there was this one that they had a history. They had been a maintenance heavy customer, and so it was the kind of thing where they were unhappy when I came in, but this girl had been able to maintain them. They sensed my nervousness, and it was like they were smelling blood. They just they were just not fun to work with at all, and it just always felt like it was sort of adversarial every time I came in. So what happened is in my second year, they went over to a competitor, and they cited one of the reasons was because of me.
Oh
They
my.
just felt that they didn't have any confidence in my abilities. Now, fortunately, my supervisor knew that this wasn't it was not like a client who had been happy and all of a sudden I had just turned things off. I also understood that, I had all these other customers that was doing just fine with. And so I realized that part of the issue with these people is they had intimidated me. I had allowed that. I wasn't giving myself enough credit for the knowledge that I had, and therefore why should they give me credit if I wasn't giving myself enough credit? What I realized is I just had to say, okay, there was a time when this would have had me measuring myself against a negative opinion and
Mhm.
not giving credence to the positive opinions that I knew were out there. This way I knew that I had to just say you can't be everything to everybody every time. This was just one of those times, so we could kind of box that in. And I wasn't happy about it, obviously, and we weren't happy about losing the business, but we were able to keep it into perspective.
That had to be a very sad time for you, but how wise of you to use the wisdom that you have to know that they were not playing fair with you, and just to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and keep doing the best work that you could, which you knew was good. And so thank you for sharing that story, because a review every so often helps us to remember that we did learn lessons, and they help us to move forward.
That's true. I mean, you just have to realize. I just wanted to make sure that I would never let that happen again, and
Yes.
so that was the lesson learned from it.
It's very wise that you learned that lesson, and you're still holding true to it, I can tell.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, what I want to do now, Nancy, is to go to the other end of the spectrum. Let's talk about the time in your journey when you had an aha moment, when you became aware of the new path that you wanted to travel. So take us to that moment when you had that light bulb go off, and take us through the steps that you took to turn that idea into success.
Well, I guess I kind of tied in my aha moment with this particular failure. Like I said, the steps I took is to sort of box in. When things happen to us, you have to learn to put it in its place and what I call box it in. You don't forget about it, but you kind of put it up in the attic and you say, okay, what do I need to do to get beyond that? So I think because of that, certainly with this particular position, what I wanted to do was prove. It made me more determined to prove that I wasn't just a good tech rep, but I was a step beyond. And so I just made a point of whenever people asked me to do things that I would go ahead and do it. We had a technical an in-source tech area, and so I started to get a reputation for being willing to take more chances and try more things. And as a result of that, when we came out with the new instrument system, I was one of the first people pulled in to learn it, to train the rest of the force. So I guess, as far as that goes, the thing is to, again, take the risk and understand, you take the responsibility that comes with it, obviously, but there's sort of that, I don't know, I guess excitement of trying something, that trepidation, but then when you succeed at it, it just gives you that additional notch of that can do. And so I don't know if that's answering your question or not. But that's kind of, to me, that's sort of the part of the fun in life is to stretch out. And there are times with this website that I'm doing that I question myself going, what are you doing here? Do you really have the capability of pulling this off? And I don't know that. What I do know is that I believe women need each other and draw a lot of strength off of each other. And if I can make this, if I get it out there and I make this a success, then, or I should say when I get it out there, I want it to be a vehicle for for women to be able to draw off of each other, to kind of get that renewable energy. If someone's story inspires another person, then mission will be accomplished. And I just feel very strongly I got to try doing this and hope that I can be that vehicle for women to be buddies with each other, even if they don't meet directly, but they draw that strength off of each other and help each other out.
So you did answer that just exactly like I know our listeners will enjoy hearing. And I just want to go back to, I really like that little statement of you box it in and put it in the attic, because those visuals like that help me to think, now that's something that goes in the box,
Hmm.
and then don't open it up again, just leave it there.
Yep.
Well, Nancy, I'm going to ask you to bring us to the present time and to share your proudest entrepreneurial moment.
I guess maybe when I was doing money management for a T, and I got two clients that just really went from appreciating the work I was doing to really looking forward to and feeling very comfortable and glad to have someone come in and help them with their finances. It wasn't a business that I really pursued and did that much with, but I had two clients that just every time I would spend time with them, I knew it was just easing their minds to know that someone was keeping track of their income and outgo, allowed them to relax. And that was just kind of a high point of knowing that I was giving someone that kind of comfort, especially in the later years.
Oh, that's a very profound story. Good for you, because when you can make other people feel comfortable with what you're doing, then it just makes all the difference in the world to you and to your clients also.
Yeah.
Well, Nancy, people really want to hear the stories like yours, how you help others to thrive. And so, would you tell us one thing that is really exciting you in your business right now?
Well, I just did a story with someone who went through a very toxic situation with a breakup of a second marriage. And I just think that this is going to really inspire people because I even have her quote. She talks about this was somebody whose husband got tired of the marriage and basically went off and found someone else. And she sort of found this out by accident. And we went through the angst and the anger, but she made a statement that I'm putting as a quote in the story. She says, "The person I want to be just wants him to be happy." And I just think that again I admire this is one of the things that I'm excited about with this site is I'm getting some stories where I find these people very inspiring rather than they're making the choices, and that's to me the privilege of being human is that we're capable of making choices, and we can either choose to be a victim and be overwhelmed by things that happen to us, or we can say, okay, this happened, maybe I wish it didn't happen, but she looks at this as a season in her life as opposed to defining who she is. And so I think it's just a very inspirational story to me that someone could overcome something like this. And she didn't rush into this marriage. In fact, she was very reluctant to basically tie the knot. But he had taken on her kids, and in fact they still like him better than they like their biological father. He wasn't a bad dad. He wasn't a bad guy. He was a little younger than her. He just, I don't know, things, and they just took on too much, I think, with their family and other family members. They, whenever anybody needed help, so they would kind of take it on. It was both sides, both his and her family, that this happened. But she really, again, she's done what I talked about is box this up. It's been 2 years. She still feels hurt. She's understanding that, at 55, she still has a lot of years to live. And so she's getting out with women and making friends and moving on with her life and saying, there's still good memories there. It's not that they didn't have good memories. And she says, maybe he was just a season in my life. I don't know. But that's how I choose to see it. And so the person that I want to be just wants to be happy, wants him to be happy, even if it's not with me. And I just feel like that's just huge to be able to say, I know who I want to be. This is who I want to be, and I'm working at it. I think it's just amazing.
Well, that is an amazing quote and attitude, and thank you for sharing that. And good for you for leading her to put it in a box and get on with her life. That was great. Nancy, what's the best business advice that you've ever received?
Oh my goodness. Business advice, I guess is basically that when you find what you want to do, you just have to stay with it. And I know with this copywriting, we met with somebody who's been working for a company and she's trying to make it on her own as a freelance copywriter. And she said part of it's there's a little bit of luck involved. Part of it is, honing your skills. But she said a lot of it is just doing it and doing it and doing it. She said you have to keep after it. And so I think that's what happens a lot of times. We get into something, and I know there's kind of this, I want to do my dream job. It's nice if you find your dream job, but every dream job has times when they're tough too. And I think a lot of times hard to plow through that and say I just have to keep doing this. A part of it is knowing if it's the right thing that you're doing. You feel in your heart, but I think that's probably you just have to keep going at it and keep going at it and until you succeed at it.
And that angst is always going to be there. And
Yes,
so we do just have to keep moving on, don't we?
absolutely.
Well, Nancy, what is the vision of the future of your business?
Well, the success of my business will be that I have an interactive website. I already have a couple of people that are going to be contributing to it, and intended to be like a cyber cafe, a place where you can come and have a cyber cup of coffee and spend some time with friends and just share ideas. And if you've got if something good's happened, you'll share that. If you're going through a trying period, you share that. But be open to, other people may have a perspective or an idea that maybe you hadn't thought of, that maybe you go, oh, if I'm having trouble getting through this, maybe here's another thing to try. So I really want it to be an interactive and a support system, because women our age, I mean, we are the caretakers, and we're still taking care of parents. We take care of partners. We take care of kids. Some of us doing grandkids. And what's easy to do is to get involved in taking care of everybody else. And then when it comes to taking care of you, you have little to no time left. So the idea behind this, the success of this will be people coming to this and saying, gee, my parents are getting to the point where we need to maybe move them into assisted living. You can go to this site and find out what some of the resources are. Then when they have that ease of finding things, it makes things easier for them. And, then when they need to take time for themselves, again, they come to the site and here are some ways to do it. Here are some ways. We're always looking, I think, to improvements in our lives. And so that's the success of this will be where someone will say, well, I really want to change something. Well, here's an article on about how to make a change, or here's a change that I want to make, or so on. It'll just be a resource that people can come, and hopefully it'll make their lives easier and they'll be able to take on whatever it is they want to do or relax. Whatever it is they're seeking, they can find it through their women friends on this cyber cafe.
I really like those words, cyber cafe. And I think that gives it's a picture of just going and relaxing and learning and being comfortable there. So I think you've got a real good idea. So thank you for sharing that. Well, Nancy, can you now share one of your personal habits that you strongly believe contributes to your success?
Oh dear, that's a tough. Again, it just comes back to that sort of dogged determination. I have this sort of thing about I remember when I was in high school and I took home ec and we had to sew a skirt, and of course I picked one of the more difficult patterns, and I really wrestled with it. I mean, it was. And I ended up getting a C in the course. She said the skirt really doesn't look that good, but by God, you stuck with it. so, so I think that probably once I do sort of tune into a scent, I'm sort of like that dogged determination that by golly, whatever it takes, I'm going to get it out there. So I do get very focused. My husband says I'm almost too focused, but when I get focused on something, it's not conceivable to. I have to just wring myself out and try everything I can until if it doesn't work, then I know I've tried everything I can.
Right. Well, that's very powerful. Those are good attribute to have, that dogged determination. I like that. So, would you describe for us who are perfect referrals for your business? And by that, I mean business associates or clients that our listeners know who would benefit from doing business with you.
Well, I'm always looking for people who have a story they would like to tell. I can't guarantee that every story would go on the site, but what I'm looking for is stories where people experience something, whether it's positive or negative, it doesn't matter, but they got something out of it. Another example is a woman who was divorced and her ex went in the hospital and she ended up taking care of him afterwards. And sort of the lesson here was if you're in this situation, we always need contacts. If you don't have contacts, it's something you need to think about. So if somebody has a story going, I went through this experience and here's what I got out of it. That's a very good referral for me. I'm also looking for certainly women who have had special needs children. I'd like to be able to do some stories because when special needs children are small, that's one thing. When they become adults, that's a whole new ball game. And I'd love to be able to find some resources on something like that. That's probably my what I call the weakest area of the website at this point because I can find as far as taking care of partners. And that's actually another one when your partner, because women live longer than husbands, most or I'd say partners, we still live longer than our counterparts there. And so I'd be interested in stories where someone has a partner who, even if it's just an accident that has disabled them for a period of time, things like that where what they did, what the resources were that they went to get help, anything that they can pass on that, hey, I did this and I wish I had known before this had happened that we had this such and such resource, so that I can share that with the readers. And then if somebody is either in that situation or something happens, they can go, oh, I can go to Because Women Care because I remember there's a resource about this particular situation.
Oh, that's great. Yes. Well, thank you. Those are very good examples of people that are going to benefit from your website. Well, Nancy, if you could recommend just one book to our listeners, what would it be?
I recently read Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, which happens to be a very popular book right now. And I've actually done a book report that will go on the website. It's been interesting. Apparently, Sheryl Sandberg, and I didn't know this until after I read the book, is rated as the fifth most powerful woman in the world. She's the COO of
Wow.
Facebook. It was interesting. I mentioned it to one person. They went, "Well, yeah, she's got everything going, and she was trained to, from being a little girl to, overachieve, and she had a husband who was, really her partner and helped her out." And I said, "Well, that's all very well and fine. It doesn't mean that the book wasn't good."
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really it tends to speak to women who are breaking the glass ceiling and how to go about it. But what I liked about it was it helped me understand an attitude that I have and that all of us have, that sometimes we meet a strong woman and we find that off-putting. And I know I've been guilty of that. Someone comes across and they're confident and they're sure of themselves, and I kind of find myself drawing back a little bit. And I also noticed that when people say to me, "Oh, you've done a good job at something," my reaction, my knee-jerk reaction is say, "Oh, well, I just did my part," or I was just part of the team of something. And we should be able to, what she calls lean and take credit for when we've done something well. There's nothing wrong with that. We shouldn't have to worry about being liked, and that's what holds us back a lot of times is we're worried that people won't like us. So I thought that the book really was a good example for all of us to say, when we meet someone strong, we should welcome their strength and not be intimidated by it, but see what we can draw off of it. And by the same token, not worry about, well, if I take credit for this, will people like me or not? I think that we all need to assess that and realize that we tend to hold back because we're afraid that we'll be a little less likable. I just thought it was a book that every woman could learn something from about how she reacts with how she feels about her accomplishments and reacts to other women who are accomplished.
Gosh, thank you. And what is her name?
Her name is Sheryl Sandberg.
Thank you very much. And you gave a very good description not only of the book, but how we as not just women, but we as human beings need to learn a lesson like that, that we are never less than.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate the way you described that book. Thank you. It makes me want to read it. So I appreciate that.
Good.
Well, Nancy, I have truly enjoyed listening to your journey and the stories that you've shared. So, will you please share one more time how we can get in touch with you and any other resource that you want us to have, and then we'll say goodbye.
Well, again, I haven't actually launched the site. You can reach me at my email. It's Nancy Tossell at cox.net. And just feel free to send me an email. And if you have a story or if you're interested in contributing to the website, right now I'm just open to everything and anything. And if it looks like it's something that I feel that the website will benefit and other women will benefit from, I'd be more than happy to explore it with anybody who contacts me.
Well, thank you for that. And would you be willing to give us the name of the website, and then we can check and see, when we get there, if it's not live, we'll know it and we can check back again.
Yeah, it's because women care. It's all one word. .com.
Okay?
I'm getting close to launching. I figure within the next couple months we'll get it launched and start out with a few articles on it, and then we'll be adding articles probably on a weekly basis. We're the caretakers. We
Right.
tend to take on the most of it.
Good. I like that name. All right. Well, again, thank you for being so generous with your time and expertise and experiences. And, okay, listeners, you can find links to this resource and everything that we've been chatting about in today's episode by going to bizstoryshared.com. Nancy Tossell. Thank you again, Nancy, and goodbye for now.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Charlotte.
Give the storyteller some love. Go to bizstoryshared.com, click on the iTunes button, and give a 5-star review. Thanks.